high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Talking Catholic. This is Marianela Nunez, and I am here with our multitasker, communication guru, Mr. Mike Walsh. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Yeah, I am. That is true. I am a multitasker in the sense that I seem to give everyone a lot of tasks. Some of my colleagues were commenting to me recently that I'm making them do too much work. But it's Lent, and we have a lot of work to do. So we got to focus on a lot of things right now. And it's a busy time, which I'm thrilled about. There is I was looking at, internally we put out a Wednesday mailing to all the parishes each Wednesday. And it is chock full of things going on in the parishes, like dozens of events and retreats and evenings of reflection and all sorts of different stuff. And that is bringing me great deals of joy. As a communication director for the Diocese of Camden, I am thrilled that there is so much information to communicate.
That's awesome. It gives you content to share, and you have so many great ways to do that.
It does. We're a multi-channel platform here at Talking Catholic. So we have the Catholic Star Herald newspaper, and we have our podcast, and YouTube shows, and we have our websites. So it's good that we're able to get so much information out there. And actually, I have to give credit to, we're recording this on a Thursday, and I got my first copy of the Catholic Star Herald, which has this beautiful photograph on the front of the students at St. Teresa Regional School in Runnymede, who are having a special gathering in support of the people of Ukraine. It's a beautiful photo. It's so much yellow and blue in it. It's actually quite nice.
It's lovely.
Yeah, but I just love seeing what the schools are doing. In addition to all the activities going on in the parishes, we have so much stuff going on in the schools, which is really so many of our high schools have, their plays going on right now, and their musicals going on. I have to give a special shout out to Camden Catholic. We're actually recording this on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, obviously. And it's Irish Giving Day for the Camden Catholic Irish. So they're having a big day today. They're all decked out in green. And we have to give a little credit to their theater groups who are celebrating their 100th anniversary, I think, this year.
That's right. I went to see The Little Mermaid, and that was an amazing show. Oh, my goodness. It was incredible.
I saw that NBC 10 in Philadelphia came out and interviewed some of the students and showcased the performance itself. So I'm really excited about that. So many wonderful things going on all around our diocese. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, and thank you to our communications and marketing person here in the Catholic Schools Office, who's been covering a lot of what's going on in our Catholic schools. So people are able to follow us on our social media platforms just to see what's going on in our amazing South Jersey Catholic schools.
That's right. You can follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and there is a ton of great stuff. And to our colleague Mike Bress, he's doing a great job really making sure that we get out that information to folks, that all the activity that's going on, all those smiling faces. We can say that now because masks are now optional in all of our schools, so you actually get to see a lot of smiling faces. I know some of our schools sort of went the extra mile on March 7th when the masks went to voluntary status to put out a bunch of pictures of their smiling students and teachers. And that was quite heartening to see.
It's incredible, Mike. And one of the things, like, we're seeing, like, some people are still wearing the mask, and like, I'm surprised that my little one, who's 4, said like he still wants to wear his mask. Like, he feels like it's wrong to enter school without the mask. So it's kind of like taking him a while to adjust to the new phase.
Well, you know what? That's the thing about our Catholic schools is we train these kids well. You tell them how to do something for 2 years, and it sinks in. My son was the same way, actually, and he's still doing that from time to time. Not in a weird way or anything like that. He just, like, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? And I always tell him, whatever you feel comfortable with, you go ahead and do whatever you want to do. And he's kind of weaned himself off of it, and it's been good. So, and the numbers are still going down, so it's certainly fine to do that. So it's been nice. Although I will say, the day that the masks mandate went away and kind of all stopped wearing them, I got sick like the next day. I got like a stomach bug or something like that. I don't know if it was something I ate or what. I was like, that was the one upside to those masks, is they kept all the other germs from getting to you too.
Yeah. I'm sick now. So like, it's kind of like, I don't know.
I think I'll be honest with you, I think our bodies kind of got used to not having to worry about it, and they got a little lazy. So so I wouldn't be surprised. But now you got that great raspy voice, Marianela. So.
Exactly. So please enjoy while it lasts. And then, otherwise you'll be hearing my pitchy voice in the following podcast.
I've never heard you refer to your voice as pitchy before. You think you have a pitchy voice?
Maybe. No?
I would high pitched, maybe. I don't know if I necessarily call it pitchy, but it's a lovely voice. So everyone loves
Mike.
Everybody loves your accent, Marianela. We know that.
I love it.
So speaking of schools, we have a very schools-oriented podcast today. And we have a couple of teachers from our schools to chit-chat about Lent, right?
Yes, and I think you've been doing a lot of Lent-related podcasts recently, Mike. And so this is such an important time for our church, and our schools are not behind on that. We really think that this is a time that we take advantage of having so many kids in our schools that can learn about our faith and what this time specifically means for them and for their families and for our church. So we try to share as much as we can with the little ones. And so for that, we have some experts in the field today. We have two amazing teachers. I'm going to start introducing Ashlei Wyant, who is a junior high religion teacher at Assumption Catholic School in Galloway. Welcome, Ashlei.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today.
We are excited to have you. And we also have Jeana Davi, who is one of the second grade teachers at St. Mary's School in Williamstown. Welcome, Jeana.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me to join you.
It is our pleasure. So we are kind of like really interested in learning about what you guys do during this time of the year with our little ones. Like you do K-8, basically in that field. So how do we teach about Lent to our little students?
Well, I can start if you'd like. So in our school, I have things that I'm doing specifically in my own class, but we also have a lot of school-wide activities that the students participate in or at least get to view and are part of. So in our own class, a couple of the things that we do, of course, is on Fridays, we have the Stations of the Cross. And before we even started to do that, we share the stations together as a group. And then one of the things that I asked the students to do was to write a reflection on a station. And we have actually set up a Walk with Jesus area in the hallway outside of our classroom, which includes pictures of the stations that the students have illustrated, but then it also has their individual reflections on what Jesus went through at each of those stations. So they had their own prayer to Jesus, reflecting on what Jesus had experienced and how they hoped that it would impact them. So for instance, if Jesus had to take the heavy cross, students might write about, Jesus helping them to bear heavy burdens, to do hard things, to accept challenges. So that's kind of like the beginning for us of Lent, is that we set up this Walk with Jesus stations area outside of our classroom, and we've reflected on the stations. Inside of the classroom, besides everyday activities for Lent, we have our prayer table set up with some symbolism. We have a crown of thorns on our table. We have a hammer to depict the time when Jesus was nailed to the cross. We actually also have a small container on our table because as a school, we bury the Alleluia during our school liturgy on Ash Wednesday. But as a class, we also did the same thing so that we have a chance to talk about that as well. So they're just kind of the beginnings of what we've done. And then throughout our school, we have many things going on. Our Ministry of Student Leadership has started for the first time this year. This is a new activity. It's a Sacred Heart donation activity. And so students bring in a donation of any amount. They decorate a heart. Each classroom has a cross on the outside of their room, a large paper cross. And then as the students bring in donations that will then be given to help others, they decorate a cross they decorate a heart. and then that's attached to the cross. So that's a school-wide activity. And then, our third graders perform a living stations, and the whole school gets to observe that as well. So there are just so many things that go on from Ash Wednesday through the time when we leave school. We have a Seder meal that we have in our individual classrooms. It's an incredibly moving and reverent time for the students. I go around, I wash all of the students' hands for them at the beginning so that, just as Jesus served, they serve me and my aide. I have an aide in my class. So she and I both do that. We work our way around the room. We wash all of the students' hands and then partake in a Seder meal together as a commemoration of the Last Supper. So there just is really kind of endless, that it's almost like you run out of Lent before you run out of things you could do to make it meaningful for the children. And I'm sure all of you would agree with that.
So you're not lacking activities, Jeana.
We're never lacking activities. It just keeps going. Again, really, we probably run out of time before we leave for our Easter break rather than running out of activities.
Well, I genuinely love hearing that. That's all of those sounded truly fantastic. I can say that when I was in Catholic school 40 years ago, we didn't have nearly that much. We relied on prayer services alone. I don't think we did nearly those activities. I'm thrilled to hear that the good children at St. Mary's in Williamstown are getting that level of religious guidance. I will tell you, by the way, just so you know, that we're actually enemies, because St. Mary's, Williamstown just beat my son's basketball team in the playoffs. So I am still a little bitter about that, but it's okay. I'm going to manage it.
I'll apologize on behalf of the team.
Don't apologize. No. They were a great team.
On your winning moment.
they showed. I will tell you this, that to your school's credit, they showed it was a blowout win, and they showed incredible grace and kindness in defeating the team, and they were very sweet. So it's a wonderful school, and I was very. If we were going to lose to anybody, I was happy it was to you guys. So,
well, thank you. That's so
a distraction
nice.
there, but it was great.
That's because they have so many activities that they teach them about kindness and about our, religious values that, they get it.
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So how about you, Ashley? How are you working with students down there in Galloway?
So similar to Jeana, I loved it. I love hearing that, the connections between the schools, because similar to Jeana, we have some school-wide, and then, in junior high, we have our focuses as well. So we also bury the Alleluia here at our school, which we always have the little guys come in and do it. The preschoolers come and roll it up with help with some of the bigger kids, and they love doing that. It's very impactful. And so we have our daily prayer service, and we do it through Zoom. So everybody watches in homeroom, and our principal, Joan Dollinger, and our student council members run it. And so there's always like a theme and a display. It's really beautiful. And so right now, obviously, we have our cross up and our crown out, our crown of thorns out. So right now, that's all on display each morning as a reminder. And then our theme here at school is walking with God. So we have our bulletin board for this season is all decorated walking with God. And then every student in the entire school decorated a shoe, like a pair of sneakers, and they all had to write like their Lenten intention on it. But they are hung all around the school. So they literally follow the trails of shoes throughout the school all day and follow the path. Following with God. So it's pretty beautiful to see like what their intentions are. And the shoes for the preschoolers are smaller than the shoes all the way up to 8th grade. So the difference in size, you get to kind of get a feel for their different intentions. What did the little ones think about giving up or making a good daily practice? What did the older kids choose? It's pretty beautiful to see that throughout the school. And then we also do a Seder meal, but with our middle grades. That's their focus. They do the Seder while at the same time our junior high, which we're planning now, will have a retreat. So they'll have a retreat just 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, while the middle grades do the Seder during Holy Week. But we do stations. We rotate who hosts stations. So like the 6th grade I did with them because I'm the religion teacher. We've had 5th grade host the stations. Now 4th grade will do it. And then our living stations, it's kind of fun to hear that other schools, they have 3rd graders there at Jeana's school, and at our school, it's the 7th graders. So that's on me too. So the 7th graders are right now rehearsing, which, it's nice for them to take it seriously and see the drama, but, getting 7th graders enthusiastic about acting in front of their peers is a little bit of a stretch at times, but they're having fun with it, and they're learning along the way. So, and then here in junior high specifically, some practices that I put in place. I'm a first year teacher here for first year teaching religion at this school. So I kind of got to start fresh and start everything new this year and make choices for my classroom. And so for Lent this season, every day as they come in, their initial work as they come right in the door, they get to work on copying down the daily intention for the day. And I pull a random strip from the pray, fast, or give column. And so it's something for a suggestion for them for a daily Lenten intention. And then I have a prayer chain where each slip of the 40 days of Lent is a few verses of the Passion. So each day we step further and further through the scripture. And so they have to hear the scripture each day and identify what's going on at the time, just to keep them connected to our journey and to remind them every day, that we're on a journey right now and we're following along. So keep them focused here all during Lent. So
that's amazing. This kind of like makes me think, like, we may have some critics out there that may say, like, I'm not sure how much Catholic faith is taught in Catholic schools, but, your testimony is a really proof of how much our kids learn. Like, if you take a child who has not been involved in a Catholic school setting, versus another child that has not been in like CCD classes or anything alike in another Catholic school, you really see a difference of how much they know based on those little things and, the fun ways in which you guys are able to present those activities and the content that is really deep, but at the same time, you make it fun, you make it digestible for the kids, and it's amazing. So what would you tell, people who may critique us for, maybe we're not teaching the faith? What would you tell them? And maybe we start with Jeana.
I think that, I think that I probably speak for almost every Catholic teacher in the diocese, if not everyone. Every minute of every day is infused with our faith. I don't think there's a time when we really step away from our faith, whether it's, joining together in the morning for prayer. Again, we, Ashlei, we also pray over Zoom. So that's the start of every day. So it's a school-wide prayer. Even when we had children who were out of school and they were in remote learning, they were still joining first thing in the morning. They were part of prayer. So I think that really we start our day that way, we end our day that way. And everything that we do throughout the day, we infuse our faith. What would Jesus expect us to do? How do we know that God loves us? How do we use the gifts from God? And when we think about Lent, what sorts of things are you doing? Are you praying more? Are you trying to give alms? How is your Lent going? And I think that we're constantly making our faith part of our day. I don't think it's just we have a religion class, which I think sets us apart. It's not just a religion class. Everything we do is part of our faith. Even I can say that we're using Super Kids here at our school as our reading series. And there are so many elements of that reading series when I can say, well, what do you think someone could have done differently that wouldn't have hurt feelings? Or what do you think is bothering this person at this time? And so it's never that we're just thinking about our faith during our religion time. Our faith is part of every single thing that we do all the time. I know my children, with the wet weather, we've sometimes been able to go out on our grass playground, and sometimes we've used our blacktop playground. And to the side of our one blacktop playground, one of our Eagle Scouts from our parish put in stations that as part of his Eagle Scout project. And sometimes I'll look up while I have the children out there, and some of them are just walking on the sidewalk through the stations, just together, maybe with a friend or two, just reading the stations, looking at the stations. It's just who we are. It's ingrained in who we are. And I think that the more that we bring into our classroom in that way, and we bring our faith into every aspect of the classroom, the children just intuitively start doing that themselves. I don't have to say, why don't you go over and look at the stations? They just stroll off and they do that. There's a grotto there with the Blessed Mother. I'll see them go over and they'll want to look at the grotto and the Blessed Mother. And so they have those faith-filled moments on their own because that's just who we are. And we bring that into everything that we do.
That's lovely. Mike?
Well, I didn't know. Ashlei, did you want to add on to that?
I was about to say, I agree. It's that in every moment. That's the difference between being a teacher and a Catholic school teacher. You know, it's choosing to make that a part of our daily routine. You know, I'm the religion teacher, so for me, it's really easy. And obviously I'm passionate about religion, but I mean, our social studies teacher, our writing teacher, all of the subjects in junior high start with a prayer, you know, as simple as just starting class with a prayer. And I know the students are doing like Catholic social teaching as part of their essays and writing class. So it's incorporated in other ways. But I always remind the kids too, you know, obviously in religion, you know, I'm hitting them hard with faith, but, you know, I remind them it's about kindness. It's about being the hands and feet of Jesus, you know, in all that you do. So, you know, no matter how, if you're there every Sunday, which we encourage, of course, if you're at Mass every week, or, you know, if your family doesn't practice, or, you know, it's about being a good person and being kind and living the lessons, living the gospel values that Jesus taught us. And that happens in every tiny moment of every day. And it's beautiful to see that. So I have a second grader here and a kindergartner here. So I get to see it in junior high as a teacher, but I get to see my little kids at home, you know, get excited about things. And I know it's because it's daily at school and they're getting that. It's a regular part of their lives, as well as our participation in our own parish as well. And so it just becomes routine, like Jeana kind of said.
You know, so I am a frustrated teacher. Is I guess the baby. I actually went to college to be a teacher. Thought I was going to be a high school history teacher. Came to the realization far too late that history teachers don't retire; they die. There is like they stay until the bitter end. So there's never any history teacher position. So I realized pretty quickly that I was going to have to find another line of work. As you were both talking, the thing that really impressed me was how tactile, this is for sort of a logistical question, how tactile you are in your teaching, in the sense that, you know, the living stations and actually sitting down and having a Seder meal. You know, I didn't know what the Last Supper was until I was probably close to 30, like what it actually was, like what was happening when Jesus came together with the apostles to actually have that meal and what it represented. And that was far too late in my life to learn that. Now I will tell you, it's one of my favorite religious meals of the entire year. I'm not Jewish, I'm Catholic, but I love a Seder meal because there's so much meaning behind it. You know, Ashlei, in your case, well, you haven't had your first Seder meal at school yet, right?
Not at school yet, no.
Right. Okay. So, Jeana, you have, correct? You've done it?
Yes, I have.
Have you found that to be an eye-opening experience for the students?
Oh, absolutely. It is. And it's amazing how reverent they are. And especially when they start to learn the symbolism behind all of the parts of the meal, it is amazing that, you know, they think they know until they don't really know and they find out what they don't know. Yeah. But it's such a reverent time in the classroom. And, you know, just kind of recreating that in the classroom. Sometimes you think, well, maybe this won't be as moving or as you know, as reverent as you would like it to be. But once we start and we light the candles, and I usually lower the lights, and then, you know, and especially once we start to move around and wash the children's hands and dry them, and, you know, and keep explaining all the different pieces as we are going through that time, it really does become incredibly meaningful time for them. And especially with little ones, they really need something, as you said, tactile. They need their hands on things. They need to be involved in it, not just the printed words. So that's why a lot of what I do during Lent, and others in the school, not just me, of course, and in every school, I'm sure, we do a lot of hands-on activities, because that really brings to light the meaning behind Lent for the children. And, you know, like I was saying, I have a prayer table with a hammer and a crown of thorns. And I see the children every now and then, they go over there and I see them picking it up and, you know, and just, you know, looking at it, talking to a friend. And And I think to myself, I don't need to get involved in their conversation. That's their moment. But I know that they are understanding better because they can put their hands on things. And that is so meaningful for them. And the living stations is probably, an incredibly meaningful time for every student in every school when they see a living stations performed, because it really brings to light what Jesus experienced.
Yeah, it's so funny. So that's what the two of you both mentioned that, and that's what ended up jogging my memory when I said that I hadn't experienced anything other than a basic service. I was wrong. I had forgotten that as an eighth grader, I was one of the actors. I was one of the guards, the Roman guards in the living stations, and that was a really powerful moment. I remember being mildly troubled by seeing my friend, who was the bloody Jesus, as part of that with the ring of thorns, and I was a guy hitting him. It wasn't so much that it was troubling, but it suddenly made that Bible story real all of a sudden. And I wouldn't say it made me more compassionate, because Marianela knows me well, and compassion is not something that will ever be confused with me, but it did increase my understanding of what it was like that I don't think I had ever gotten until my eighth grade year. So I think that those are fascinating. The thing you guys mentioned that I had never heard of before, however, is burying the Alleluia. That's another thing that I didn't really understand until later in life. I knew we didn't use the Alleluia during Lent, but it just never was something that sat in my head. Where can you, is there a manual that came out of? What was the symbolism behind that? Because that is definitely something a little newer.
Thank you for asking that question, Mike.
Yeah.
I actually came from the Diocese of Tucson in Arizona. I'm from this area. I graduated from Assumption Regional Catholic School on the Whitehorse Pike, the old location, but I lived in Arizona for 11 years. And I worked for the Diocese of Tucson, and we did it there too. So I think it's something that must have just picked up steam in the past, 10 or 20 years, maybe. I'm not sure, but I know for sure Joan Dollinger, incorporated it here. And I'm not really sure if Mrs. Schertz had been doing it before that, but so maybe it's a newer trend.
Can you explain what it is for our listeners that may have no idea what it is?
Jeana, do you want to explain?
Sure. And I was going to say, I agree with Ashley. I do think that it has been something a little more recent, because I've been teaching in the diocese for 25 years, and there was a time when we didn't do that. So I think you're right that it is something a little bit more recent. So during Lent, because we're not using the Alleluia during Mass, we say that since we no longer use it, we bury the Alleluia until we get to Easter. So I don't know exactly how you do it in your school, Ashley, but what we do is we have a printed paper that has the word Alleluia on it. And each child puts his or her name on that. And then during our school liturgy, those are brought forward. And we have it's a gold box that we bury, or we fold and put all of those papers in. The Alleluia for each class is put in there. It's tied with purple. And then we keep that right at the front of the production area in our school, so that every morning when we pray, we can see the Alleluia is buried. It's there in front of us during Lent as we're praying, so we can see that. In my class, we did the same thing as individuals. So they had an Alleluia, they decorated that, and then I have a box, just a small box that has an angel on it, and we put those in, and then we put those at our prayer table. So I agree that it's something new, and it's just our way that since we don't use the Alleluia during Mass, we've put that away in a sacred, special spot for us until we're ready to bring the Alleluia back into the Mass.
So we can tell your students would totally be able to say, this is why we don't sing the Alleluia when we go to Mass, which is kind of like one of my favorite things. Like our students are able to go to Mass and understand a lot of what they're seeing, because you're teaching them and allowing them to touch a lot of the signs that we use during that sacred moment, so that they can get a better understanding of why, the priest uses the things he's using during Mass, and what are those symbols that are so important to us Catholics, right?
That's so true. I think the kids are so into that why. And I love that we answer those whys, and we have visual representations and explanations for them. So it's not just, the routine of like, well, we do this and this and this, like we have lots of traditions in our faith. But it's beautiful when they get to see the why and understand it in a more complex way. For us, our burying of the Alleluia, I love Jeana's school. That's really cool. And what we do is like a large banner. So it's like one big banner instead of individuals. And the kids like physically roll it up and tie it up. So it's like a big one. So that's interesting to see the two different ways. Those are both really beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. I think that what we found is that, there's a lot of different sort of teaching techniques, and I kind of like the fact that they are being utilized. But honestly, the thing that really impresses me is the fact that you're using teaching techniques in the religion space. There is, and I say it like that because, we have the Eucharistic revival has been announced for the middle of this year. It's going to be a big effort by all the bishops in all the bishops in the United States to really focus on helping people to understand what the Eucharist is. Because there was a Pew study that came out several years ago that said Catholics themselves, not a majority of them, but many of them didn't understand what the Eucharist was. And I think a lot of adult Catholics in particular have kind of forgotten what they learned in religion class. Because let's face it, back then, religion class might have been a little different. It was probably a lot of reading, not a lot of the tactile learning that we were just talking about. And some of that stuff might have been replaced in their heads by things that they learned on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So I'm actually, as you're both talking, we're actually in the planning phase for what the Diocese of Camden is going to be doing for the Eucharistic Revival. And suddenly I'm realizing, I think going to need to reach out to the two of you because there are some really good ideas you're using that I think I could actually utilize on adults too. But my hope is that pastors will hear this and think about some of this stuff for their own religion programs, because it really sounds like the kids really seem to understand and gravitate to what you're learning. In terms of, what you do for younger students versus older students, I think, Jeana, you said earlier that the tactile stuff is really impactful on younger students since, they don't really have at that age, they don't really have the learning capacity for some larger concepts. For the older students, do you find that you're able to use more academic techniques with them?
For our junior high classroom, so we just finished an activity with sixth grade, comparing Moses and Jesus and two passages. So they had to look up the passage themselves, and they worked in pairs, and each student had to do a different passage, and then they had to teach each other about the passages and see why they were related to each other. They made a chart together. They weren't allowed to read each other's passage. They had to explain it to each other. So learning by teaching. And they answered a few questions to get them on the right track, and then they had to work together to build this chart and then underline the comparison points on how did the stories relate, baby Jesus and baby Moses, and how they were both saved, by the angel coming in the dream, and by Moses's mother putting him in the basket, but then the Pharaoh's daughter saving him. So it was interesting to see them have to teach and have to process it and understand it more deeply because they had to explain it to a friend. So for the older kids, we try to, dive in and still do activities, but yes, a little more academic, like you said.
I love that. That is my favorite. That is my favorite teaching technique. I learned that in high school, and it carried me through college. It was the only way I got through with my scant grades was that teaching technique. And I have a 13-year-old right now, and I just started teaching him that technique this year, because there were a few subjects he was having difficulty in, and I was like, listen, teach it to me. Teach me what you're learning. And sure enough, that was the best technique for kind of fast tracking his ability. So I hope anybody who's listening right now is going to go back and tell their kids, their grandkids, their nephews, their nieces, their cousins about all these things that we're learning right now. Because this is a very resourcul. I'm going to have to keep this. I may have to keep this as a video one, as a matter of fact. You guys may end up on video.
Mike, I just wanted to add, one of the things that I think we need more of in our Catholic Church is to be able to keep our youth and little kids engaged in our faith and learning about our faith. So for parents who are out there really thinking about how can I pass on my Catholic faith, when I don't have a lot of time to really sit down, and they can only do it maybe by example in some conversations, but not really hands-on activities and a curriculum that has been developed diocesan-wide just to make sure that the kids learn what they need to learn about our faith by the time they finish our school. This is an option for them. This is an option to, keep children learning in a fun way, and also just to really have them engage, which is what we need in our Catholic Church. So just kind of like consider that, because it's real, it happens. And we have amazing teachers like Ashlei and Jeana who are doing a great job of passing on the faith and helping us out. Like, I don't know about you, Mike, but I feel like our teachers are really our friends in like keeping us, and our families, targeting our faith for our kids, because, we're working, we're busy, and we can only teach, as little as we can. And then having, our allies here makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I as my son Jack has gotten older, I'm actually trying to pull back a little bit from how much I put my fingers into his learning, still keeping an eye on him, making sure that he's actually doing his homework and whatnot and getting good grades. But the truth of the matter is, in some of the classes he's in, even in 8th grade, it's now moved a little bit beyond me, because, it's been a long time since I learned some of this stuff. And I realized that if it's not the test or a study guide, I may not always be able to help him. But I do feel a great deal of pride in the fact that our Catholic schools have such great teachers. I know he's particularly fond of the teachers he has now. It doesn't always see eye to eye on all of their learning, but I think that might be a him problem and not a them problem. But it's good. I'm actually really lucky. He goes to high school next year, and he's going to go from a smaller school to an enormous school, the largest school we have in the Diocese of Camden. And I'm really looking forward to what his life is going to look like next year, when he's got even more teaching opportunities for him. But Jeana and Ashlei, to kind of get back to your lives a little bit, Ashlei, you kind of touch on this a little bit in your sort of movement from South Jersey to the Southwest to South Jersey again. So I'm curious from both of you, and we'll start with you, Ashlei. How did you end up as a religion teacher in Galloway?
So as I mentioned, I did live in Arizona for a while, and I took a position there. I actually taught music, but I was also, I guess you could call it like the liturgy coordinator, because we had weekly mass at our school there. And I ran all the prayer services and planned the masses and worked with the kids to make sure they knew the music for mass and the parts of the mass and everything. So it was a very religion-heavy music class. That was really important to my principal. So I did that position, but I also did marketing for the school. And then when I came here, back to New Jersey, back to my family, I have a lot of kids, and I enrolled my students here. My oldest daughter here immediately for pre-K, while I gave birth to twins, actually. And then once my twins got a little bit older, I got asked, would you mind teaching art one day a week? Because I'm an art, music, theater person in the background too. And so last year I started off just dipping my toe in teaching art. My mom watched my twins. And then this year my twins went to preschool full time. And so a position came up for the religion teacher. And I was seeking out people at my parish. Does anyone know anyone? They're looking for a junior high religion teacher. And someone said, why not you? And I said, that's true. I would love that, because I've been a catechist for many years, and I do youth ministry. And so I said, that's true. So I have a lot on my plate, but I couldn't say no. I was so called to do this. I was so excited. So I work full time here at the school teaching religion. They graced me with the position. I love it. And then I work part-time for my parish as well, doing youth and family ministry. So, so I love working in Catholic schools. And it's funny, we're talking about it because I just mentioned to my 8th graders today, we were discussing, if you're incorporating virtues in your daily life and how it rubs off. And I said, at school for me and at home for me, and making a good and kind and virtuous and generous life important rubbed off on me, and that's the career path I chose too. So I wanted to work in our Catholic schools, and I've worked in another nonprofit. I did the business world because I do have an MBA, and I didn't like it at all. So for me, it's very important for my faith to be a part of my daily life. And so it was like a no-brainer when this position came up. It was just like, okay, they're full-time. I can do it. We're doing it. And so I'm just thrilled to be here. So, and I see many years ahead, especially because my kids will be going to the school as well. So I'm lucky.
What a beautiful story. What about you, Jeana?
Yeah.
I've actually, for me, being at St. Mary's is actually coming home. I attended St. Mary's as a student when it was not always in this building, it was in another building, and then we moved here. So I'm a graduate of St. Mary's. And when my husband and I married, we were living in central New Jersey, and then we moved back here where our families were, and we lived outside of Hamilton. And I was a stay-at-home mom at that point. I had actually been working for the government as an analyst. And when I had my son, I decided to stay home. And when he was ready, I enrolled him at the preschool at St. Nicholas School in Egg Harbor City. And Sister Kathleen, who was there, asked me if I could help out a little bit some days with, library. And you know how it is in Catholic school, next thing you know, you're involved in a lot of things. And when my son started kindergarten, Sister Kathleen asked me to take the preschool. So I did. I started with the preschool there. And then the next year, Joan Dollinger, who is Ashley's principal now, became my principal at St. Nicholas. And she asked me to move into the middle school. So I actually spent about the first 15 years teaching in middle school. And it was wonderful. And then I moved back to Williamstown. I'm back in Our Lady of Peace Parish. And Trish Mancuso called me and she said, I have a second grade opening. And I said to myself, did she just say second grade? And I was so excited because I was like, that's a sacrament year. That's really exciting. It will be reconciliation. It will be First Holy Communion. This is exciting stuff to be involved in sacramental preparation of these little ones. So that's how I came back to St. Mary's. And it's been wonderful for me, especially the sacrament preparation. Probably one of the most exciting things that's happened during the time when we've prepared for sacraments here is 2 years ago, two of the students in my class were not Catholic. They were in our class, part of our religion class, learning all about sacraments. And both of their families decided that they wanted them to become Catholic. And so my class, it was just so moving. And my aide and I literally cried during the liturgy. They were baptized and received First Holy Communion during a school liturgy. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Such a moving experience for the students and for us. We literally just sat there snapping pictures as if they were our own children and crying, the two of us. And then just this year, these things just keep coming. And it's so wonderful because it just fills your heart so much. I have a student whose parents are not Catholic, but she was baptized Lutheran, and they want her to receive sacraments, and they want to convert her to Catholicism. And this year, she was able, as part of one of our one day, right before reconciliation, Deacon John, who is here at our parish, she received the profession of faith. And so she's receiving sacraments with us. And the children are so excited when they see those things. We came back here with this little girl after she had her profession of faith. They were clapping for her. They were so excited for her, so happy that she's receiving with them. So those things are so incredibly moving. So St. Mary's, I've kind of come full circle, but it's just the happiest that I could possibly be, especially in the second grade with preparing for sacraments. It's so fulfilling for me.
That's amazing, Mike. And just for our listeners, like if they didn't know, we want to emphasize the fact that our kids going to our Catholic schools are able to learn their faith while they go to school on a Monday through Friday schedule. And we prepare them for their sacraments as they go. So, if you're a parent who are thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't do Saturday classes for, religious education program. Just know that this is part of our curriculum. Like we do sacramental preparation as part of, what we do. And it is amazing, just as Jeana was mentioning, and how that happens, because they're really prepared for the sacrament. And that's why we are allowed to do that.
Oh, I'm well versed. Yeah, as you may realize, Jack is currently in the last few weeks of confirmation prep. As a matter of fact, some of his classmates are getting confirmed at a different parish this very Sunday, as a matter of fact, with Bishop. Jack, I think, is getting confirmed the first Sunday in May, I think. But it is, it's a great opportunity. One of the things I've always liked about that is it blends school and religion so effortlessly. Which, let's face it, Marianela, we've talked about this on every school's podcast we've ever done. We do these podcasts because we want people to know what's going on in our schools. We also want to encourage people to send their kids to our Catholic schools, and I think you can tell in this conversation about the richness that it brings, and it happens during the school hours, not necessarily something you have to do on the weekends or in the evenings. Yes, it costs money to get to send kids to Catholic schools, but man, do you get what you get for that? You would not be able to get anyplace else.
Correct.
The teachers are phenomenal, as you've heard already. That they cutting edge education techniques, very tactile. Designed for the age of the kid. This is not the kind of this isn't the old days with just a well-seasoned religious woman with a what are those things called again? All of a sudden popped out of my head. The thing you measure stuff with.
Great understanding of the faith.
Hitting somebody on the hand. Yeah, but it's a new school. It's not what people might have remembered it. As we had just seen from this conversation with myself, there's so many things that have changed and advanced in the years since I was in a great Catholic grade school that you can really see it's commensurate with what you would find in a public school, but so much more, because we can offer so much more that a public school can't do. So I do hope that in addition to all the people who have been learning teaching techniques as part of this podcast, that they've also been learning just how rich and full our Catholic schools are, and why they should be sending their kids or their grandkids or their nieces and nephews, whomever that is living in their household, to a school like this, or encouraging people they know to send their kids to a Catholic school, because what you get out of it is just unbelievable. Which is why Marianela, you and I, and Ashlei send our kids to Catholic schools.
Definitely. Having my son tell me, they have a cross cover with a purple cloth on it. And he's like, Mom, do you know why this is covered with a purple cloth? And he's like, this is because Jesus is praying in the mountain for us right now as he's preparing for, the crucifixion. That was kind of like, whoa, this child. And, his mother's sad too, so she's covered. And he's 4. So just kind of like, these are the little things that really make a difference. And it just, you hear people all the time when you have children in Catholic schools. We are not perfect by no means, because, we know that the only perfect is Jesus. But one of the things that we hear people talking about is, wow, your child knows about God. And that's amazing. And it's amazing to hear other kids realizing that children that go to a Catholic school really have a deeper understanding of the faith, and they tend to be more aligned with having a relationship with Jesus and wanting that, because they hear it all the time. And it's kind of like, they know it's the right thing to do, and they want to, please their teachers, but they also want to kind of like get to understand more of that little thing that we're putting in their hearts.
Another thing that I think is really important for the students is, I know, like Bishop visited our school this fall, and for my children, again, they're 7 and 8 years old, but that was huge to them, huge that he came in and he saw their classroom and he asked them questions and talked to them after he had celebrated liturgy here. And so I really do think the bishop and his visibility within all of the parishes and the schools, I think that's incredibly important in our ministry as well, because it it enriches the children's experience to know it's not just me teaching them, it's not just our parish priest that they see, but the bishop came to their school. And that really is huge for them. And, I was so appreciative that he stopped into our room. And if you could have seen their faces, they were just blown away that the bishop was in their room. And, and they talked about it, and they still talk about it, the fact that he came here and visited them.
Yeah. Yeah. Bishop said that, to your point, that is actually something Bishop Sullivan makes a point of, is making sure he gets out to as many of the schools as he can during the year. I know he likes to start the school year by hitting a few, and then throughout, as the school progresses, he tries to go out and I try to go with him whenever I can, and he keeps me on my toes too.
He loves it. It's kind of like one of his favorite things to do, isn't it, Mike?
It genuinely is. It really is. He loves to be out in the past. He's made my life interesting in the sense that he's not a bishop that it necessarily enjoys speaking directly to the media or mass communicating or anything like that, but he loves being with the people. And I think, to Jeana's point, I really do think the students appreciate the fact. I didn't see a bishop until I saw a bishop when I got confirmed, and then I didn't see another bishop until I graduated high school. But my son has seen the bishop so often that the bishop knows who he is. It's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing, actually. So, and our priests deserve a lot of credit for that too, because they also make a point for the parishes that have a neighboring school or a school that's associated with the parish. They really do a good job of making sure that they're seen as well, which I know is something that Bishop is pushing. So, by the way, if one of your pastors isn't showing up a lot, let the bishop know. He'll give him a little push.
Come on, Mike! Don't make this guy's going trouble.
Oh no! I'm going to dime him out. You know me. I'm the henchman of the bishop. I call everybody on it. But no, it is good, and I hope the people who have listened will have heard what's really going on. That the nature of the spirituality, the depth of the spirituality. The fact that when you go to a Catholic school, it really is a Catholic school. It's a lot more than just a school uniform and a cross on the wall and having off on holy days. It is, we've certainly, I think this is one of the first times we've ever had two religion teachers on the podcast, Marianela, but we've certainly had a lot of other teachers on over the years, and they all say the exact same thing, that even though they're not religion teachers, they make sure that the faith is a part of their studies, so that it dovetails into, the nature of the school.
That's definitely right. And the fact that we have such a supportive bishop when it comes to Catholic schools is it's been amazing in the past few years. We've really seen how that affects Catholic schools positively, because there's a connection with our leader who loves who we are and what we do, and the reason why we do it. And we believe there's so much value in Catholic school education for our children, and not only for our children but for the families, because for some families Catholic schools are the only way they kind of hear about their faith, and their children might be their disciples, showing them about the faith. So many of those things that they learn, parents do not even know about, and they're learning with them. And that's kind of have made, I'm sure, some conversions happen. And, we want our church to grow. This is part of, what we do. And we want to continue growing as a Catholic church and as Catholic schools.
Well, Jeana and Ashlei, I do hope that you'll let me know as the communications director, and certainly let Marianela know as the enrollment director, what's going on in your classrooms. If you're doing interesting things like, say, I don't know, living stations, or next year when you have the bearing of the Hallelujah. Certainly send us photos or invite us down. We would love to, our Catholic Star Herald newspaper is always looking for opportunities to focus on what's going on. So please keep up the good work and let us know what's going on.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time and coming in on our podcast today. We know how busy teachers are, so we're always grateful when you say yes to the call.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both. And You're very welcome. And thank you I know it's late on a school day, so thank you for staying a little later at your classes. But to both of you, thank you so much. And Marianela, thank you for helping to set this up. And certainly Mike Bress, who's the communications manager for the school's office, thank you for helping. And to our listeners, thank you for checking in with us. And we'll talk to you again next week. See you, everybody.